by more than the entire Australian annual emissions profile. To set the scene, we do appreciate that when it comes to animal agriculture, values are important. There is no doubt, there's protests outside the door sometimes about animal agriculture. It also is the case that there are 1.5 billion cows on the planet. And around the world, families, regional communities, and large-scale agriculture depend on that model. If that model can transition into something that decarbonizes and brings nature back into farming systems, we can change the world. So this panel includes a new multidão, a perspective that brings from Australia's national science to one of our most exciting agricultural technology companies, the first company that the Bill Gates Breakthrough Energy Ventures Fund invested in Australia, with one of the world's largest meat value chains around the world, Minerva Foods, a Brazilian giant that has just, together with Ruminate, our startup, done significant field trials at the University of São Paulo, the research powerhouse of Latin America. And with us as well is the natural capital arm of Al Gore's Generation Asset Management called Just Climate, run from here in Brazil. So I'd like to set the scene by understanding what is a super pollutant. Why are we so concerned with methane? And, you know, for those of you that may not kind of follow this, it turns out that methane has a shorter life than CO2, but its power to force warming is much more intense in the near term than CO2 in the long term. So I think the UNFCCC uses an equivalence where if we compare methane with CO2 over 100 years, it's 28 times more powerful as a forcing gas. But if we shorten that up to 20 or even 10 years, it's more like 80 to 120 times more powerful. So I'd like to introduce Michael Robertson, who is the Director of Agriculture with CSIRO, to talk about the importance of managing super pollutants within agricultural systems.
Yeah, thanks, Mara. As you said, methane's a very powerful greenhouse gas. And so when you look, say, at Australian agriculture, something like 18% of the national emissions from the economy comes from agriculture. Of that 18%, 80% of that is caused by enteric methane from farm animals, from ruminants. So it's a very powerful contributor to global warming, and I can see no way in which we can which agriculture can contribute to the zero emissions in a number of countries without tackling the methane problem because of its consequential effects, particularly in the short term between here and, say, 2040. So even though it is a short-term lived gas in the atmosphere, it does have a very powerful short-term impact on the warming potential we have over the next couple of decades.
Okay, so this is a pressing global problem, which for Australia is a meaningful part of our net zero pathway. To put in perspective how important this is for Brazil, there are more cows than people in Brazil. And there are lots of people in Brazil. So I'd like to introduce David Messina, the CEO of Ruminate, to frame the story of Ruminate and how you came to be inspired by seaweed, Asparagopsis, to find a game-changing, cost-effective solution that draws on pharmacology and the power of synthesizing compounds. David.
Thank you, Mara, and thank you for the invitation, of course. Look, we have, if we go back 3 or 4 years now, we were looking at the great work that Cyro, in fact, and others were doing with Asparagopsis seaweed. And myself and my co-founders, who are from the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, decided that we thought we'd set ourselves the challenge to actually do that synthetically. And that was very much with the input of my co-founders, who have a long experience in taking products found in nature, in trees and other things, and turning them into medicine in human health. And that's the same approach that we've taken at Ruminate. We now have a product with the same active compound as the original Asparagopsis. We can make that anywhere in the world, including here in Brazil. And we can make it at a much lower cost, much higher quality, which means we can get it registered and meet all the health and safety and environmental regulations anywhere in the world. And we can do that at a low price, which gives the farmer the opportunity to not only use our product without changing their farming systems, but also look at reducing methane and improving animal performance as well.
Okay, fantastic. So this idea that germinates in Australia caught our radar at the Australia-Brazil Chamber of Commerce. And over the past 3 years, having a series of net zero shared pathways conversations. And Gracie Vergiselva was a natural entrant into that because she is the executive manager for carbon and nature of Minerva Foods. And it's always interesting when Australians come to Brazil and they learn the scale of how we do things. I am a dual citizen, so for me it's kind of fun to watch. Just to set the scene, and Gracie, I'll ask you to deepen this, imagine a company that works with 57,000 farms across 7 Latin American nations and exports to 100 countries. And they've just done a big merger, which makes them even bigger. Gracie, help us to understand the scale of Minerva Foods and how Gracie, who has a PhD from the University of WA and is a dual citizen, has set a credible decarbonization target that includes carbon, nature, electrification. Gracie.
Thanks, Mara. So Minerva Foods is the largest beef exporter from South America. We operate in 5 countries here: Colombia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, and of course Brazil. And a couple of years ago, we acquired lamb operations down under. So we have 4 lamb plants also in Australia. So we have a huge responsibility and a huge task. 98% of our emissions come from Scope 3. So they come from the rural producers from which we are supplying our beef products and lamb products. So we have worked very hard. I've been with the company for 5 years, and since I started, we've been working very hard on implementing a regenerative agriculture project where we work together with the supply chain, supporting producers to overcome some of the barriers that exist to the adoption of these sustainable technologies at the farm level. And for us, it's a very natural to include technologies such as the one that Ruminate has developed, because you see such fast results. When we're talking about taking degraded pasture and recovering it, we're talking about a process of 2 to 3 years. If we want to then make a rotational grazing system, we're talking about another 2 to 3 years. If we want to make a really beautiful integrated system with crops and forests, we're talking about 7 to 10 years to get some kind of a return. With these systems, with these technologies that Ruminate has developed and other companies from Australia, we are seeing this potential to reduce the methane emissions from one day to the next. And this is a real game changer. So this is why we've been partnering with Ruminate for the last couple of years.
Okay, very good. Before I come to Hafa at the end, I'd like to explore a little bit, in addition to a tremendous impact on forcing power of greenhouse emissions that this work has, the productivity per animal that occurs when we switch off this methane, when we inhibit it, is now emerging in serious field trials around the world, including here in Brazil. And you can think about that two ways, right? You can think about that in terms of the ability to stock up a property more because, the productivity is greatly enhanced. Or you can think about reducing the land of the existing stock and enabling that land to be used for bringing nature back on at scale. So, David, help us to understand, how does that look, that trial and the productivity element?
Yeah, so
And please hold the mic real close.
Okay, so the trial that is underway, actually, it's a pilot we're doing with Minerva with hundreds of animals now, so it has scale. And what we are looking to do is analyse the reduction in methane and also the growth rate of the animals. And we've just had our first reading last week, and we have seen a 5% increase in productivity of the animals in that first 30-day pilot. It runs for 90 days. And we're also obviously seeing methane reductions. So we're in the process of minting our first carbon credits anywhere in the world, here in Brazil for COP. And that is a world first for us. And it's happening here with Minerva. And the idea with both carbon credits and, of course, productivity gains is the farmer will have the ability to improve their returns. If we look at the productivity gains alone, it basically means we can get the same amount of milk, as an example, with 5% less animals and 5% less land. So it really does open up the opportunity, particularly somewhere like Brazil, for a more integrated farming system, reforestation perhaps, or somewhere in between that, with that extra land, which I think Gracie has calculated.
Yes, over to Gracie.
I did. So we did the numbers on this. If we get a 5% productivity increase in our entire herd, we will be putting back 1.5 million hectares to nature and maintaining the same amount of cattle. So this really is quite significant. And I am only talking about the Minerva supply chain in Brazil. I'm not talking about the other countries in South America, and I'm not talking about all of the other farms that do not supply to us.
Okay, I think Michael would like to add something from a scientific point of view to that proposition.
I just want to support what David's saying. The scientific evidence for bromoform-based feed additives in a feed ration to cows, whether they be beef cows or dairy cows, is that you do get between a 5 and 10% productivity gain. So it is one of these unusual things we see in nature, which is a win-win. Not many times you see this happening in the world of biology or nature, that you actually don't get a trade-off. So this is why I think this is such an exciting thing. So with other bromoform-based products, we do see this similar evidence. So this is definitely not a flash in the pan that Ruminate are reporting here.
Okay, so I'm now going to turn to Rafa. and I really do want to set the scene here with context, right? Because we sometimes forget of the humans and the villages, the communities around agricultural systems really in the world. And here in Brazil, in our regions, entire communities depend on animal protein. I had the really interesting opportunity 5 years ago to join the Gates Foundation in Addis Ababa for a series of workshops with smallholder farmers innovating with African ag tech companies around sustainability. And the importance of animal agriculture having social license for the many billions of people that rely on the 1.5 billion cows that we have to do better for nature and for climate. And so, Rafa, I guess first help us to understand, how do we think finance and investment in this changing natural capital landscape?
Mara, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Just one topic on the economic activity from cattle. One very interesting information for those who are here and not familiar with Brazil. Brazil has 5,500 cities. Cattle is the only economic activity which is represented in all cities. So we have a cattle farmer in every single city in Brazil. That means a lot of families depend on how we cultivate cattle. And cattle, the technology to grow cattle, to integrate into a productivity system, and to integrate in the ecosystem is changing a lot. So despite all backlash that we have in cattle, you've seen the protest here in the door. When we think about emissions coming from cattle, one, methane. We're talking about enteric fermentation. Ruminate has found a solution, which Grace knows. It's actionable, it's easy to apply, and helps to solve 95% of the methane which is issued by the cattle. The other 5%, which is manure, we already have technologies for that. So many producers are already treating the manure from the cattle. So in terms of methane emission, we can get to a zero level emission, or close to that. And then also on the integration of ecosystems, forest, important for everyone to understand, cattle is currently helping agriculture. So when we integrate cattle into an agriculture system, the output from the soy production, corn production, or any crop production is better, because when you are in the off season, you plant cover crops, and the cattle helps to eat the cover crops and helps to establish a better condition for your soil. So Mara, when I think about integrating cattle with families, with economic activities, it's very necessary. Cattle is the best protein, it's the easiest protein that we can offer to the world as food. It's a business which all family knows how to conduct. And when I think about financing solutions, I think about equity to help companies to grow. I think about tipping points, companies that are solving for some solutions which are not solved right now. And I think about partnerships with companies such as Minerva, because given that we have cattle producers in all cities, we need companies such as Minerva, which can help to push the product. I cannot count with a rancher to say, okay, I need to reduce methane, so I need to buy ruminate product. Maybe someone which is very far away from the city centers, they don't know. And that's why we need Minerva, we need other folks which can establish this relationship with the cattle ranchers and then bring sustainability to the field.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe we can have a little bit of insight around how the relationship between Minerva and Ruminate really was crystallized and the role of research in making that happen. And I say that to an Australian audience because, you know, separate to all these roles, I am a member of the advisory board to our Department of Foreign Affairs on Australia-Latin American relations. And from a partnership point of view, the relationship between industries that have common challenges is very important. It may not be well known, but Australian mining, engineering, and technology services, including companies that know how to electrify critical minerals mines, from Australia now have headquarters in Brazil. It's a very large partnership, a very dynamic economic exchange. And it is our great hope that Australians' ag tech sector, our agricultural technologies, will find similar pathways and partnerships. And because of the quality of this partnership, it is quite groundbreaking. David, how did that work? How did the partnership develop?
Well, like all good partnerships, it probably started with a little bit of luck and a little bit of timing. and that was my colleague Costa, who's sitting in the audience there with the beard. Meeting Edu, actually, Rafa's partner in San Francisco, and they couldn't stop talking about Brazil and the opportunity down here, and the fact that we couldn't be anywhere else in the world other than Australia first, and then Brazil second. And so we jumped on a plane and ran around and met everyone we could, and as you've seen the passion from Rafa, it's, you know, and we saw the opportunity, and one of those meetings was, of course, with Minerva, and the relationship has grown. Then I think that was 2.5 years ago, approximately. We've since done 7 trials here in Brazil. We have many more planned in the future. It is indeed a massive opportunity. And, you know, 2.5 years later, we've solved the problem. We have a product that reduces methane and improves productivity, and that then creates the opportunity that comes with Brazilian scale, Brazilian entrepreneurs, Brazilian money, finance, and so to be working on our first pilot and minting our first credit with Minerva was a very natural expansion of that relationship.
I would add to that, agreeing with everything that Dave said, the solution that Ruminate presented to us is really useful because most of our cattle don't come through feedlots. Our system is not like the US, where you have the large feedlots where cattle are eating soy. We have extensive grazing for the vast majority of our cattle, and the cattle that go through feedlots do a 100-day fattening period. So we need to be able to reach the entire life cycle of these animals. And the solutions that Ruminate are presenting enable this. They enable the application of this product into the mineral salts that are applied into the fields and into the water sources. And some other more innovative solutions are in the pipeline as well. And this is critical because if we can only get to 100 days of an animal that's going to be slaughtered with 24 months, we're really not going to solve the problem. So this is why we were really, really pleased and really happy to have this partnership with Ruminate.
Okay, so the wonderful thing about these events is they are live streamed, and then there is a recording. And, you know, I used to lead business development for CSRO, so I'm really good at finding partners. And at this stage, I would like to, you know, speak directly to members of Frontier Climate. So this pool of capital controlled by Alphabet, Google, Amazon, McKinsey, led by Stripe, Shopify is in there, and they are in the business of pre-committing capital through the carbon markets at very high prices in order to catalyze technologies that are game-changing. Now, I know they have focused on direct air capture, non-nature-based solutions. This is an equally important enterprise to scale. And once the emissions are removed, in farming systems globally, they are removed forever. And the warming consequences of removing them early is significant. And it is our proposition that should be offering $500 $600 credit in order to capitalize this partnership fast at work. These microphones are diabolical. They stop right in the middle. Anyway, that is my pitch to Frontier Climate, and we will send this to them. I want to turn to Rafa to talk about how the carbon market, the nature market, can capitalize, bring investment into this vision for mixed farming systems that improve nature and help solve climate at scale.
Yes. Just getting into one point that you mentioned, what we really appreciate into ruminates technology is not only the capacity to reduce methane, but again, productivity for the farmer. So when you talk about direct air capture, we are talking about a solution which brings inflation into the chain, because currently the current technology is still being developed, is still getting there. When you think about methane reduction through ruminates technology, again, when the productivity through the system actually gives more output or reduces the quantity of land you need to operate. As a nature investor, what we are looking for are technologies that we can see the tipping points of making sense for the value chain. So once you have a technology which is really interesting in terms of potential, but there is no stakeholders willing to take it, it's really tough to put efforts and to invest money, because the solution is not ready to that. So for those solutions, you need other pool of capitals. You need concessionary capital, you need grants, you need other pool of capitals. For private investors like us and some other asset managers and asset owners, our job is to really understand where the technology is in the phase of development. And again, once we see an opportunity to help stakeholders, to help Minerva, to help ranchers, our capital has to be the first capital in. This is equity. And once the company starts to be developed, generate cash flow, then bank capital comes, credit capital comes, and we create the whole structure for financing, the nature financing, which is becoming very structured nowadays worldwide.
Okay, very good. So again, and the interesting thing about unlocking capital through the carbon market is it is not dilutive. It does not make the capital stack kind of be debt beholden up front. It's catalytic, isn't it, Rafa?
It is. It is. It's an upside to the value chain. So we've been doing a very long project on the carbon measurement, and once this becomes mainstream, once this becomes measurable and farmers really understand how economics flow, this is totally catalytic. At the end of the day, a farmer needs to maximize dollars per hectare. And once he understands climate solutions helps to maximize those quantities of capital per hectare, that is catalytic to all other pool of capitals that are necessary to establish the technology.
Okay, fantastic. And at this stage, I think Michael has a question for Gracie.
Yeah. Often these panel discussions can be very polite, so I'm going to be a bit provocative. In the spirit of the Aussies on the stage here. One thing I was missing a bit, Gracie, is why has Minerva seen this as an opportunity to run less animals? Why wouldn't you just run 5% more animals if you can reduce their emissions by 5 or increase their productivity or reduce their emissions by 80%? Because I'm putting myself in the shoes of one of your suppliers, one of your many thousands of suppliers. What's the incentive for them to run less animals here? So what are the drivers, I guess, for Minerva in wanting to do this? Sparing land, putting more land back into nature, into forestry, into forages, or whatever. I think you're getting my question, right?
It's a great question, and I should have offered Gracie an opportunity to discuss Minerva's groundbreaking Henovi program. Go, Gracie!
So Minerva already has a program for the last 5 years which works together with our ranchers to help them to understand all the values that come from the natural capital on their farms. So we're working, talking about protection of springs. So to just lay a little bit of groundwork, in Brazil, farmers must maintain between 20 and 80% of native vegetation within their rural properties as part of the forest code. So there's already forest on farms. And we help them to understand all of the values that come out of that in terms of resilience, microclimate, water resources, and also the greater contribution that they're making to biodiversity, which in turn gives back to their production systems. So this is something that is already happening in our conversation with farmers. We, in parallel, have a carbon credit developer which is fully based on nature-based solutions. It's called My Carbon, and we support not just ranchers but also agricultural producers to access carbon credit markets through soil carbon, and this is through agricultural land management methodologies, but also through forest preservation and restoration methodologies. So this is working all together. It's like this full suite of opportunities that exist, and we don't see this as reducing necessarily the number of cattle. We see it as producing larger, younger, better quality cattle.
Yeah, presumably with a lower emissions intensity.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Shortly, we will open for questions, comments, let's engage with the audience. How do we think, really, this is an open question to the panel, right? So imagine the ingredients of this partnership. Brilliant, patented, intellectual property from Australia that is addressing this critical need to remove the greenium, to make it so attractive because of productivity, valuation, access to capital, that it's better to do this than to not do this. Early capital from the world's most sort of, whether you agree with his recent climate statement or not, the world's smartest, breakthrough investor, the Gates Breakthrough Energy Venture Fund. The power of science, credible science, and unlocking pilots in markets that matter. Validation from the world's leading natural capital, commercial, financial advisors and investors that this is the secret to unlocking, right? So my question to the panel is, how do we do this fast? Like, we're all looking at tipping points. We're sitting here in the Amazon where desertification is already happening. The Amazon provides the rivers of water that provide rain to the communities that we love across the Americas. What do we do to make this happen fast? And Gracie, I'm going to start with you because your value chain is so powerful to move things. How do we do this?
This is an easy conversation because everyone wants the same thing. Farmers want more efficiency. They want less input costs. They want more productivity. That's exactly the same as having a system which is sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it into the soil. It's exactly the same thing as keeping forests standing. It's exactly the thing that the consumer wants because he wants a really good quality piece of beef at the end of the day. So I actually don't think this is that difficult. What we have here when we have the productivity gains, which we are seeing, is this really key mechanism which unlocks the appetite of the rancher to adopt this technology. So it's not feasible for Minerva to be applying this technology in thousands of farms. We do need the farmer to want to adopt this technology, and that's why these productivity gains are absolutely critical. We're going to count the methane emissions, and they're going to count the dollars that are flowing in.
David.
I'll start with the boring part first, which is we have a regulated product, and we need to make sure it's safe for the environment, safe for human consumption, and obviously safe for cattle to be used. And we've made some great progress with that, and including here in Brazil. So that is just a process we need to go through, but it does mean that the product has been fully validated and certified. But we're close here, so that's within sight. I think to turbocharge, if we take a step back from what we're doing, and look at all sorts of different innovations in livestock, we need to unlock that carbon revenue stream. The more the farmer makes, the faster he's going to adopt. So he's not only being able to generate revenue from more productivity, whatever that looks like, depending on the system, but also from carbon credits. And that is the catalyst, I think, for global adoption, mass adoption through Brazil and LATAM. And that's our job. We need to find a way to do that, to make it absolutely a non-negotiable that you must be using products like ours because it just makes total sense at every level, and the climate wins in the end.
And David, just for context, share with us the actual results of your trials. I think it's pretty exciting, and where you are specifically on approvals in Brazil.
Right, we're as part of the pilot, one of the things we wanted to demonstrate with Minerva is we're actually able to create carbon credits as the animal is reducing, producing methane. So we had our first measurement last week, and those carbon credits will be validated and certified over the next few weeks. And so that is going to demonstrate that actually during the life of the animal, the farmer can actually get carbon credits and have the ability to monetize those if he wants to, or he can bank them and sell it as low carbon meat or milk or any other product that he might produce. But if we're able to crystallize that revenue flow through the life of the animal, then again it starts to really change the dynamic. So materializing those carbon credits is going to be, huge, and it's as I said, it's literally happening as we speak. The 5% productivity gains are real, and we're expecting those to improve as we understand the animals and the diet. They're all very different animals here to pretty much anywhere else in the world. What does that mean? We need to work that out. So that'll improve over time. And then you connect all that together and you have a system and a solution that's safe and farmers will want to use, and obviously the climate is the winner in the end with 1 to 2 tons of CO2 per animal per year
Okay,
reduced.
very good. And knowing the Al Gore speed message, Hafa, help us to understand, how does the capital model speed up?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting question, because what I'm going to say applies to literally everything. To speed up technologies, to speed up those kind of solutions, we need 2 things. One is data, and that's what we've been working for the last couple of years. Second, it's not capital, it's education. There is no solution that can be speed up without education to a larger group of people. It doesn't matter if ruminate is delivering 5% productivity yield if we don't communicate, or if we don't teach people. It doesn't matter how the product is operating if we don't have the support from Australia-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, if we don't connect people that need a solution to people who can provide a solution. So once the data is finalized and once the product is registered, on top of capital, which will be available as the product becomes more mature, we need to work with all parties to make sure everyone who needs to understand this product understands this product. Otherwise, there is no capital that can accelerate this solution.
Very good. Michael, I'll come to you in a second, but I want to just reflect on that comment, because I mentioned being in Addis Ababa and working with smallholder farmers and the technology community in Africa. And we found a startup there that was incredible, and it is scaled. It's called My Cow. It was a simple text SMS service that took knowledge from ILRI, the International Livestock Research Institute, and made it available on a daily basis to hundreds of thousands of smallholder farmers for adoption. We need a conversation that actually is rancher to rancher, farmer to farmer, around the world, about how this works. Such an exciting moment. Michael, what's your sense of speed and urgency and technology in agriculture? And I'm also interested, there's a really important thing that has changed in terms of data. Remember, years ago in Australia, there was no connectivity on farms, and suddenly we have Starlink, and so data capture has changed. What does it mean?
Oh, there's a lot in that question. I just wanted to say too, the My Cow thing, that was a Gates-funded thing. That's a really exciting innovation. I just wanted to comment on what impresses me so much about this partnership first, Mara. I think the 3 the 3 necessary ingredients are breakthrough technology, a go-to-market partner that has scale and alignment, which is what Minerva brings, And then the regulatory environment, right? The enabling environment that means incentives can be monetised for stakeholders. So I think that's what I love about this as a case study. And I think that's what we need to find more of, is partnering breakthrough technologies with at-scale go-to-market partners in the right regulatory environment and enabling environment. That, to me, is what makes this such an exciting example. So the role that digital plays in all this, I think it's around what David's talking about, is how can we verify through the life cycle of an animal that it is actually has a reduced methane output and productivity gain that we're basically claiming. And there's an opportunity here for digital, both sensing and data ecosystems, to try and to do that in an open grazing situation. To me, that's the really hard innovation barrier we now have in this stuff. It's easy to show the technology works in respiration chambers. It's around how do you then verify it out in the open field through the life cycle of an animal.
Okay, fantastic. So we have a really interesting audience. Are there any questions?
Thanks very much. Ilona Miller from Gilbert and Tobin. So my question, I think, is following on from what Michael has just said in terms of where are we at with those digital verification systems? Where is the technology that can sort of essentially enable you to go out on farm and do that measurement with, you know, an iPhone to speed up that process and then feed that into the verification process to underpin the credit issuance?
I'll start, and then we can pass the mic around. But look, there's several protocols that are around that take you through what you need to do, including published papers and registration. So they're the two very clear things. And the peer-reviewed published papers are around methane reduction in certain circumstances and how that then will relay out to the field. That's certainly the process we're following. We're probably fortunate. We've done over 40 trials now around the world. We have several published papers and a pipeline of probably about another 10. So we'll be able to get there, albeit quite arduous and quite expensive, because a trial is $300,000 to $500,000. You have to do that in many, many different locations. But as far as new technology goes, certainly that we're aware and that our team has been looking at, it's not ready yet. So we're going to have to sort of rely on the modelled framework, which is a great basis, I think. But in time, we're definitely going to have to improve that.
A couple of technology perspectives on your question. There are actually experimental technologies now where we can actually sample the breath from a cow out in the field. So you've got to incentivize a cow to come to a particular position in the field where you sample their breath and analyze the methane in it. It's obviously a fairly expensive technology at the moment, but that's one we're using in research that you might imagine could be scaled commercially one day. The other thing we've been looking at is actually taking a tissue sample from the animal and analyzing that tissue sample, and that actually tells you how much methane it has been emitting over the previous period leading up to that tissue sampling point. And that's a retrospective way of verification, and that's something else we've been exploring as well and have a pattern for.
And if you're interested in following the progress, so I was involved with a cooperative research center headed out through the University of Technology in Sydney called Food Agility Cooperative Research Center, which is spinning out all of these technologies being validated on farm. According to McKinsey 5 years ago, agriculture was the least digitized sector in the Australian economy. That has leapfrogged with connectivity through Starlink. All of a sudden, farmers have a different way to navigate data. Okay, other questions from the audience? Yes, our friend. Please speak very close. The microphone is here.
Okay. Thank you so much. I found Thank you very much. I'm finding the conversation very interesting, particularly the linkage between animal production and the carbon market. I'm coming from a country where in certain towns, the population of cattle is larger than the population of humans. And so we have not really leveraged on this to improve on the emission reduction through our NDCs. I'm coming from Zambia, by the way. So when I was listening to that linkage between carbon markets and animal production and emission reduction, I was thinking this is an opportunity that we have not tapped into where I'm coming from. Much of our carbon market, we are still talking lead plus and land-based forest reductions. But we've already moved from being a net sink into a net emitter now. But there's not even a single credit we are using or that we are leveraging from animal production. But we have so much of the animals, and such technologies being talked about here could actually be of benefit to us. Now, maybe my question is, are there plans to scale up this to areas like Africa, where I think we can make a lot more use of this? Thank you.
I've been to Zambia many times. I love the place. We will be in Africa as soon as we can get there. We've been doing a proof of concept as quickly as we can. We're 4 years old now. And we've done all the deep research. We're in full development mode now. And then registration is where we are in 3 or 4 countries, starting that registration journey. Africa is certainly next. We understand the impact it might have with producing more milk in particular from dairy cows. We've seen an extra kilo of milk per day in some of our early dairy experiments. So we're seeing the same things. And milk is such an important protein, obviously, and right across Africa, in any ruminant, so buffaloes as well. So yes, we're it's in our sights. We know what sort of impact it can potentially have, and one of our major shareholders has got Africa in his heart, so we'll be there.
You know, it's crazy. We have to learn to dream, right? Whenever I try to say anything, the microphone dies. If we had to dream right now, imagine that the COP goes from here to Australia and from Australia to Addis Ababa, and that this technology scales as a conversation that is applied in the world of families that rely on animals and the small communities that need to, and that the carbon markets rebuild their social license and mobilize for this solution, which really can change the world. So grateful. Please join our conversation. Huh? Other questions, please.
Thank you. So very nice conversation. In fact, from this LH panel, I come from. You gotta eat it. Right. You gotta eat it. Yeah. Right. So hello. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Very nice conversation that you had, and very great insights. I'm Dr. Amit Kumar Thakur from India. I work with Terry, and Namaste. I work with Terry, a global think tank working on energy and environment and sustainable development. We have done a lot of programs on community development and carbon market. India, in fact, a lot of projects have been developed in the voluntary market as per the standards and methodologies of Vera and Gold Standard, and maybe a few others. In the methane front, in fact, we are taking it up. At TERI, in fact, we are very closely working with the government of India and the state government. As you mentioned, we have several cattles across the country. We have cattle sheds also, which houses thousands of cows and buffaloes. And the baseline, what has been seen there, the emissions are quite high. But again, we want to take it up. We have developed a big program where the feed is very crucial, and the feed needs to be introduced. Maybe the cost may be factor initially, but as we all know that methane fetches more prices than agroforestry or maybe from the renewables. So what I would like to ask that is there any strategy of yours in India, investing in India of these foods from Rumen or Minerva or others? Because this is a very big opportunity. Terry is there. We are working very closely with the Ministry of Environment Forest. We have developed a very big project with animal husbandry and also the state governments. And it is very authentic. The data can very much verified. And recently, one of the methodology has been approved 2 days ago in UNFCCC only on this enteric methane. So my request is that what are your plans of investment? And if it is done now, then it can really be beneficial for abating methane. Thank you. Namaste.
It's almost the same answer, unfortunately, except I haven't been to India. I've been to Zambia. Look, it's we're at that stage now where we are prioritising which countries we move into next. We are a startup. These guys don't give us unlimited money, unfortunately. It'd be good though. We'll take it. But certainly the better. I'm really encouraged to hear how well that you've developed some of those carbon accounting systems and carbon credit systems, because that does really unlock. We're going to see the productivity there. We see it almost everywhere we do our trials. So we're quite confident that'll be through those agricultural systems you're talking about. If you're already starting to work on those carbon projects, where that essentially doubles the profitability or even triples the profitability for the grower. And again, it's a bit like Africa, in livestock are there to produce milk, and we're certainly seeing milk yields and milk quality improve as well, as that otherwise lost methane is converted into proteins, which end up obviously with into the milk and better milk quality. So yes, look, we're if the carbon is advancing, that's a really good thing, because it makes it even more compelling.
And really, the Australia-Brazil Chamber of Commerce should be the BRICS Chamber of Commerce, right? Because we need to work fast in the real world.
Can I just add something? I'll offer something even better for you, David. So we have just invested in one of the largest technical consultant companies in India. They work with ag and they work with dairy as well. So as soon as we finalize our studies, we may use that platform to export our product to India and reach out to a lot of families there.
Okay, technically we are 3 minutes over, but no one has grabbed the mic. So if anyone else has a question, last burning question.
Thank you. My name's Rebecca Joyce. I'm from Dairy Australia. I was wondering what support is needed, or what are the biggest barriers you see in Australia to scale up and speed up these kind of initiatives?
Yeah. I think you should talk about that. Well, so as David mentioned at the start, CSIRO has been quite involved in this bromoform game for a while now, and we see the big challenge around how do you deliver the feed additive or the compound to a grazing animal. Obviously, in a dairy shed or in a feedlot, it's a bit of an easier exercise. If the animal's going to be delivered a feed every day, that you can deliver it successfully that way. But I think the next frontier is how do you deliver that to a grazing animal, many of which in Australia don't see a human being maybe for 12 months.
Okay, David, please.
Yeah, just and great to put it on the record as following the lead here. The situation in Australia is quite bad, actually, which is embarrassing to admit, but we have no pathway to regulate methane-reducing products, any of them, in livestock. We lag behind the rest of the world. We are so good at doing many things in agriculture, whether it be grain production or livestock, highly efficient, low carbon impact because we've had to be, because it's very dry and harsh. But we have not been leaders in providing a pathway for our technology and others, hence why we're doing work in the rest of the world, in New Zealand, Brazil, US, Europe.
How funny. We could solve the world's problems and then come home and solve our own. So I'm actually going to give half of the mic for the last 2 minutes because I want to come back to the social story. I want to come back to the country that we are in and what it means for us to solve this, the benefits, the hope, the opportunity.
Mara, you mean in terms of
The communities that rely on this solution.
Yeah. So again, this is probably one of the most important sectors for Brazilians. It generates a lot of employment. It generates a lot of economic activities in all levels, from very large companies to very small holders. My family, we do have dairy operations, so I know how relevant this is to all the local community, from service providers to technical consultants to logistics to everything. I think it's really sad when we see a lot of people commenting about cattle. Again, the cheapest source of protein. We have many people that cannot eat in the world. We're talking about 1.5 billion. It's a lot. So we will need to increase outputs. We will need to increase food production, and we need to increase cheap food production. So sorting out a solution that helps to benefit, 1, local communities, 2, local families, 3, large corporates, because you are important. It's important that everyone, all stakeholders are well established. And 3, that provides connection between countries and a bound between countries, because we lost that bound over the last couple of years. This is critical. So David, you have something really important in your hands. I'll hand it to you, but thank you so much for all the efforts to create a solution for that important sector.
Okay, very good. Thank you for joining us.